Hi, Capricorn Sun and Rising. Welcome to your December 2021 Astro Update. It's Rena here. So December looks like it's going to be very active. When I compile these lists, sometimes it seems quieter than others, but December seems pretty full-bodied because one sign is when the month starts with a transit, it seems like it's just kicking off with major activity. And on the first of the month, Neptune does go direct. And this is in its own sign of Pisces, where it has been for the last 9 years. Or almost 10 years, actually. And Pisces for Capricorn is the third house. Now, when Neptune goes retrograde, and I can't remember exactly when that was, I think it was in June. So it was almost a good 6 months that Neptune was retrograding. And because Neptune is a generational planet, it's very slow to gain or lose degrees. So it doesn't progress all that much in either direction, but you can still feel its influence because it is sticking around in one area for so long. So in the third house, which is the house of the mind, Neptune, for you to have Neptune here, can mean that the average Capricorn person for the last decade or so has been becoming more intuitive rather than needing that linear type of way of processing information, being willing to consider that, you know how some people say, oh, give me proof, and while I'm not saying that that's just evil or bad, it can be limiting if you always need proof for everything, if you're discussing things of a spiritual nature and somebody's like a very big skeptic. And so this may affect the type of work that you're even doing, because you may not feel like, if you are in a field that is linear, intellectual. So especially something I would say like mathematics or something that's very finite, science and things like that, you might be more inclined to mysticism, to creative types of things. Like, let's say you're a writer, or, well, I was going to say like a journalist, because the third house can be the media. And then you become like, I like writing, but I actually prefer fiction writing to writing articles in a newspaper. So while Neptune was retrograding, that might have been a reality check that has to do with third house matters. So maybe you were training for something, trying to get some certification, and you really were honest with yourself and say, do I really like this? Is this really what I want? Yes, I could get that. I could make my resume look more impressive, but is this what I really, really want? And if you don't want it, it might be very disillusioning, because that's what Neptune can do, because you might be like, well, what do I want? And your mind can feel kind of confused when Neptune is transiting your third house, because you might be, the symbol of Pisces is the fish swimming in two different directions. The third house can be your siblings, so there may be something that has been happening with them that has been causing you to feel unsure or confused in your dealings with them. Maybe they have not been open with you, And when Neptune went retrograde, it's not so much found something out, but you came to some realization about them. So that was more realistic, but also kind of disappointing. Well, now things can be more how they were before. And this is just true of life itself. Sometimes we get involved with people, even people we've known for years and years, and an event occurs that makes it seem like we didn't know them at all because they were not on their best behavior. And it can feel disillusioning. But then sometimes, faith is restored somehow. So, and this can also relate to where you live, because the third house can be your local area. And maybe there have been some things that in recent months you haven't been very thrilled about, and it has made you not really enthused about living where you do, and or finding out that something's been going on, and it has been kept from the public, because Neptune can be deception, and when it's retrograding, that could get exposed. So if there are other things that you like about where you live, then you may decide to stay there, at least temporarily. On the 4th, there's a solar eclipse at 12 degrees of Sagittarius. And for Capricorn, this is the 12th house. So this is, a spiritual place. And an eclipse, a solar eclipse in the 12th house, can make you acutely aware of some of the fears, or even these are the things that are called unfounded fears, because you may not be able to trace the origin of these things. But I feel like, because the 12th house can be past lives, that it's probably from a past life that these things are occurring. And it can feel very discombobulating, because the 12th house is also your, what do they call those? Self-defeating patterns. So there might be an event that comes up that really highlights this for you, that you're forced to face that. Sagittarius is a spiritual, philosophical sign, and the 12th house, being Pisces domain, is also spiritual. And you are a sign associated with career and an earth sign. So this calls upon Capricorns to become less concerned about practical matters, and really tuning into their spiritual nature. And because this is a powerful new moon, I would also add that it could be a jump start to some kind of spiritual practice. And because it's a powerful new moon, it might be the coming year, you might see new spiritual teachers or fellow aspirants, spiritual programs coming your way. And with, given that this is a solar eclipse, maybe that's even something that you would do for a living at some point. Because with Pluto transiting your sign, Capricorn, you've already been undergoing major transformation. So Pluto has a connection to healing, and the healing arts might be calling you. On the 13th, Mars goes into that 12th house. It's in Sagittarius, and Mars in the 12th is a very strange bedfellow, is very, very active in this house contemplation. It's like if you were at a monastery and you wanted to do an exercise routine or something. That's not compatible with what the monastery is all about. The monastery is about, or the ashram is about, actually more like sitting still than it is about being very physically active. There's a physicality with Mars, and it's a contemplative area of the chart. So one of the great uses of Mars in the 12th house is strategizing behind the scenes. And you can make the argument that that's always a good idea, to keep your plans, your behavior to yourself, so that you can do everything you need to do without naysayers coming and trying to nix it. And then when you launch, you're already established. You're not getting discouraged by somebody else's negative comments. And it might, if there's any kind of desire to be doing hatha yoga, that is the perfect combination. So maybe the solar eclipse in the 12th house is leading you to yoga. And that could be an exception. On the same date, the 13th, Mercury goes into Capricorn, your sign. So Mercury has been in that 12th house. So you have a lot of energy in the 12th. Then Mercury goes into the first house, and it's more about you selling yourself to others, because you know how to tune into what your essence is and convey it to others. This is particularly helpful if you are trying to find a job, if you are trying to drum up clients, or if you're looking for a partner to go into a business with you, be an investor. You can communicate to the best of your ability, Mercury being in the first house, who you are and what you stand for. On the 18th, the full moon is at 27 degrees of Gemini. And this, for you, is the 6th house of work. A full moon here could be a promotion. It can be finishing some kind of a project. It could be quitting a job being over if it's like contract work. You could find out something about a coworker. And, and yes, and by the way, that's another thing. Mars in the 12th house can be hidden enemies. And I don't like to say that because, that sounds like kind of paranoid inducing. Oh my gosh, I got these people who are plotting against me and I don't know who they are. So yeah, I didn't think about that. But yeah, so that could be where you find out about these people. But Mars in the 12th house can be this kind of negative or combative behavior that is happening behind the scenes. So it's being directed at you, but you don't know about it, or don't know who is initiating it. But then you find out. And that can be, pretty interesting. The very next day on the 19th, Venus goes retrograde at 26 degrees of Capricorn. So in your sign in the first house. So this is something that with Venus in the first house, there's some kind of situation in your life in general. This is the house of the body and your image. And even though it may seem superficial, Venus in the first house itself can lend its itself to doing some kind of improvement on what one's looks. But when Venus is retrograding, you could be thinking about these issues, what needs to be done to make yourself more attractive. And the difference, this is an important finer point, is that it's not about being gorgeous. It's about being attractive, meaning that you're attracting to you positive people, places, and things. And you're looking at how you're presenting yourself and seeing if it's appealing enough. And for a Capricorn person, this is going to typically be for business purposes, to make sure that your image is appealing so that you can gain the most amount of clients and so on and so forth. And you may really decide, I have to put myself out there a lot more. But first you want to improve some of the things physically. On the 21st, we have the winter solstice, or we can just say solstice. And the sun is going into your sign, Capricorn. Powerful period, an equinox. And the sun in a cardinal sign can herald a lot of action taking place. And maybe it seemed like things were coasting along a little bit, and then it just starts happening in the outer world or the collective. This is your solar return period, so it's very powerful and it may feel very energizing. On the 28th, Jupiter goes back into Pisces, this time for good. It went earlier in the year to an early degree of Pisces, and then spent the rest of the time in Aquarius, and now it's back for good. And just to recap, Jupiter would be going, when it goes into Pisces, it's going into the area that is connected to the mind. And Jupiter is going to sail pretty fast through Pisces, so it will eventually form a conjunction with Neptune, and then that's really great for any kind of visualization and just allowing the mind to have the wildest dreams it can come up with, because there's such a connection to being in that free state where you just love freedom. You're just imagining that you can do whatever you want to do. Jupiter is a very positive influence. And it's like the life coach who says, you can do this, you've got this. So there's a real type of positivity when Jupiter is going into that third house. So even becoming a life coach wouldn't be, beyond the pale in terms of maybe future professions or something like that. So that is a great way to end the month. And that's what I have for you, Capricorn. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a personal reading, the link is below. I'm at RainaMoonAstrology.com. Take care. Bye.